Welcome to another episode of the Fanzone Podcast, your home for all things Bolton Wanderers, up the Trotters, the Northwest's #1 podcast.
Good evening, ladies and gents. We are back with another episode of the Fanzone Podcast. This time we're back for episode 23. Thank you all for joining us, as always. If you are watching at home, you're more than welcome to pop in your comments on the live chat and let us know your thoughts on what we're talking about as we go through. For those of you who aren't listening or are catching up on Spotify or whatever, if you do fancy joining us for a live episode, then you're more than welcome to. Our socials are all at the Fanzone Pod, apart from Instagram, which is at the Fanzone Podcast. You should be able to catch us over there. And all details about the lives and when they are over there. But we look forward to welcoming you. But we're joined by Colin, and it is the return of the Ange. She's overcome her illness and returned. So welcome back. But back with the regular crew, Colin and Ange. How are you both doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Self?
Yeah, made it through.
Just
very glad to see that Angela's alive, actually, because she left
Indeed.
us a couple of voice notes during the last week or two and sounded like she was going to pass away. So good to have her with us.
It was close. It was a close one. I nearly carked it.
Just about back with us. Unfortunately, we couldn't make it a 3-point podcast for you to return to.
Could have done better, boys. Could have done better.
Wasn't meant to be, unfortunately. But on that note, it's only fair that we start with our post-match reactions. Joe has said up the white's still going up. Whether you agree on that,
Love it.
Sure, we'll find out. But Ange, since as you're back in the action, we'll go to you first. What did you make of the game against Morecambe?
I thought Morecambe played a very good game. I didn't think we played a very good game. We just looked absolutely knackered. We looked tired. We looked half a yard behind everything. We were second to every ball. It was just one of those. It was one of those matches where, and don't get me wrong, I don't think we struggle there. We always struggle there. We struggled there last season. It's a hard place to go. They've only lost, was it 1 in 12 or something? They've got such a good record at home. And I think some people have kind of looked at it as we're playing 20th in the table. We should be coming away with 3. And for me, I was never going into that match thinking we're going to come away with 3. I'm going to really struggle with the man of the match this pod. I've been trying to, I don't even know where I'm going to go with that. I know it's not that bit yet, but I just think everybody was off it slightly. Yeah, nothing really much to kind of analyze because it's kind of it's how I thought it would go after watching Tuesday's match and thinking, oh Jesus, it was kind of a repeat without quite such a severe pasting.
Yeah.
So yay to that.
It's a very fair point, to be fair. Morecambe are notoriously a tough opponent for us, but for the rest of the league as well. You were right in what you said, that they've only lost 1 in their last 12. Lots of
the
teams
Morecambe commentator did say if it was home form only, they would be 11th in the table.
Yes, unfortunately.
We didn't get tickets anyway.
So yeah, only one team have come away with 3 points. I think Derby drew not long ago when they went, and Barnsley ended up losing. So it's not an easy place to go by any stretch of the imagination. And although that doesn't quite excuse the off-par performance that we saw from Bolton, you know, in reflection, maybe a point isn't all that bad. Colin, what did you make of it?
I'm going to look at it from a slightly positive perspective in a sense that we didn't get beat. Our team is growing week and month upon month throughout the season. Yeah, we're running out of time. I think there's only 10 games left. But when you look at like the average age of that team and rocking up to a place like Morecambe that's notoriously difficult, with the antics that come with it, with the experience that a lot of their lads have, such as the goalkeeper, I think he's been around the block, and several others. I think it shows that we're improving as a team, because I think that we'd have lost that game last season in my eyes. And yes, it's not a win, and obviously I've been saying for weeks every game's must win, and it is if we want to close down that top 2 spot. But it isn't the end of the world. I think we need to have a little bit of realism, realise where we're at as a club, realise where we're at as a team, realise that we aren't going to win every single game. It's not. There's going to be little bumps in the road, like a lot of people are saying. The performance wasn't great. The performance again was similar to Pompey. We just looked at dead on our feet after an hour. I thought we were all right for an hour. First half, a bit bitty. Didn't really have much opportunities. I think they were keeping a good save from Dion Charles from about maybe 15, 20 yards out. Second half, we improved, like gone up a gear, but we didn't score at the critical moments, which is always the
first 5 minutes at second half.
And I had a little bit to do with the guy who sat not too far away from me, and he was basically saying how SHIT our team are and all the rest of it, and saying that we're playing a team who's 20th in the league or whatever they are, we should be beating them and all that. But if what that guy is expecting, and several other Bolton fans who possibly even watch this or go to the games regularly, are expecting Aaron Morley to, every single time he gets the ball pinging into the top corner, us to finish every single opportunity that we get so we can beat teams 5-6-0 every week, which is for some reason what people seem to expect. It isn't going to happen, because these lads are playing at the level they're playing at for a reason. They're either young, inexperienced and learning the trade, or they just simply aren't as good as people think they are. We're doing very, very well to be where we are as a team and as a club, be it the budget. I think we're mid-table in terms of where budget stats are. So I think we just have to have a little bit of realism, really, and just expect and understand that, we've still got plenty of football to be played, and chances are we'll probably go and beat Ipswich on Saturday and get a result with Sheffield Wednesday, because they are good enough to do that. We just need to back them and, just get over the fact that we're not going to beat every single team, basically. But in terms of the result, it's a point away from home. It's a clean sheet. It wasn't great, but like Ian Evatt keeps saying, if you can't win, make sure you don't lose.
Yeah, I think
bit of a rant, wasn't it? Was it a rant?
No, not at all. I think it's a really
it wasn't ranty at all. No.
I think it's a really good point to make, that that dose of realism is sometimes needed, and often we come away from games thinking, oh, that was a walkover and we should have had 3 points and we should have had this and we should have had that. But the truth is that over a very long season, you just can't win them all, and you're going to lose. Sheffield Wednesday fans might not feel the same way after their very bizarre run, but
Sheffield Wednesday paying people 15, 16, 17 grand a week.
Stupid money. They're paying stupid money in wages.
They're gonna win all the games, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? We're relying on loans and playing Kieran Lee who so often who shouldn't be playing every week, and we're getting by off very, very good recruitment. We haven't got the budget that Sheffield Wednesday have got, despite what other clubs fans seem to think. So we can't compare ourselves to them.
That as well is a good point. I think not many fans will probably see it this way, but from my point of view, from where we are as a club now, as comparison to 2 years ago, would you say that we're overachieving, given the nature of League One and how much money is perhaps being thrown around? Would you say we're overachieving? Maybe not in comparison to talent, but in the grand scheme of things. What do you think, Colin?
I wouldn't say we're overachieving. I think we're at the level that we probably expect us to be. Yes, the budget isn't quite as big as people think, but we're still Bolton Wanderers Football Club in the third tier of English football, and we're still able to attract your Conor Bradleys, your James Traffords, the players that are very, very good at this level to play for us because of who we are. And obviously, we're going to have first pick over a lot of the clubs in this division just because of the name. So, we are where I expect us to be in that playoff spot. It's just nice that we've still got a chance to close that top two, albeit really small. I think we have to win, probably beat Ipswich is an absolute definite. We have to stand any chance, and then probably go to Sheffield Wednesday and get a result as well. Otherwise, we can kiss that goodbye.
We've had some comments in, albeit not too much to separate the two sides. David Green has actually said that we're playing for sixth place. Experience counts from now on, which is a good point. I've spoke on Twitter quite a lot about how our battle might not necessarily be with, the teams that are in third, fourth or fifth, but keeping our heads above the water and keeping ahead of Wycombe, who at the minute look like the most likely, if any, team to take us out of that sixth spot and take a playoff spot. But after losing Gareth Ainsworth and not winning in the last two, it looks like that could have worked in our favour. Ben has said in our last 11 games, he'd have put this as our third or fourth toughest after Wednesday away, Ipswich at home and perhaps Shrewsbury at home. Take a point and we've got plenty of easier games left, which is a good point. Looking at the fixtures that we have coming towards the business end of the season, we look in quite a good spot to go on a run and pick up a number of wins. What do you both think about that? If, perhaps worse comes to worse and we don't pick up points in the next two games, do you think we still stand in good stead come the end of the season to pick up points and pick up a run of form with what some could argue as easier fixtures with teams that might not have much to play for? What do you think, Ange?
Yeah, definitely.
Ange, before you answer that, Ange, can you just quickly, whilst Ange speaks, could you just run through for me and Ange's benefit the next 5 fixtures? Sorry, Ben. Sorry,
the next 5 of our fixtures.
Yeah.
So starting with obviously Ipswich this weekend, we then make the trip to Sheffield Wednesday, Plymouth in the Cup, and then it's Exeter on a Friday night and Cambridge on a Monday night, and that's that Easter weekend sort of run of fixtures.
Both the Cambridge and the Exeter. I know Exeter's away, and it is Cambridge at home.
Cambridge is at home, yeah.
Cool. Sorry, Ange, carry on.
Yeah. So absolutely, we can. I mean, maybe I'm just an optimist. I'm always nervous, and I never expect a result. But then I also never expect a pasting, and I don't think for a minute we'll roll over for Ipswich or Sheffield Wednesday. We need Georgie Johnson back, is what we need. We need a little bit more robustness in the squad. I absolutely think that we need to just keep above those teams below us, obviously, and it doesn't matter where we finish in the playoffs. Doesn't matter. I couldn't care less whether we finish third or sixth. I don't care. We're going to finish in the playoffs, in my book. If we finish anywhere worth finishing, it'll be somewhere in. To me, it don't matter. And then you've just got yourself a mini cup, haven't you? A mini cup, and then we'll see what happens.
I think, we probably will finish in the playoffs. I agree with that. But we need to make sure when we're going into the playoffs that we are on somewhat of a decent run, because you do need a little bit of momentum when you're in that. And
I definitely think we will be, and I definitely think we're gonna have a stronger squad as well. So I don't worry about us in the playoffs. We just need to get there. Yeah. I agree with Mark Smith, who seems to be having a conversation with himself from what I can see on the chat. He put a comment before about the centre midfield overrun and knackered. As much as George Johnson's important to have back in the team, I think we need some legs in midfield, so that's a shadow of a doubt. I'm my thoughts on MJ. I really like him. I think he's what we've missed these last couple of games. He's critical, and having George Thomason knocking about is really good news as well. We need to start utilising them options in midfield. But as far as the next few games are concerned, I don't have a concern about the Sheffield Wednesday and Ipswich games, to be honest with you. I think we'll beat Ipswich on Saturday. I do. I think we'll the lads will play above themselves. Like I said, they'll have a week on the grass. They've had an extra day's rest in comparison to what they've had to put up with recently with Tuesday games and stuff.
and they'll realise how important it is. It's at home. Home advantage is always good. We've got a decent record against Ipswich. No concerns about Ipswich at home. In all fairness, yes, they're a good side, and they'll bring a bit of a good following and stuff, and it will be a difficult game, but I think we'll beat them. Sheffield Wednesday is a bit of a different animal for obvious reasons, but beyond that, extra away. We mentioned about going teams like that and needs to win. It all depends on obviously the reaction after the cup and all that. Which in honesty, that cup game, it's beginning to do me head in. To be honest with you, already. Like, I get the excitement, and I get a big proportion of our fan base has been starved of any sort of, decent football, if you will, over the last 10 years or so. But we need to shelve that. Yeah, you're right, and I get it, and I get them all excited, singing, going to Wembley and all that shite. But I don't think it's helping. I think we need to shelve it. I think we need to focus on the bread and butter, which is getting out of this shitty league, and enjoy Wembley on the day. But the mindset needs to shift away from that competition, which is just a bonus. That's my thoughts on that anyway. But yeah, beyond that, it depends on obviously what comes of that game in terms of the result. I'm sure it might affect us both positive and negatively, but I see there's no reason why we can't cement the playoff spot over the next 10 games.
Absolutely. Just on your point about not being as concerned, perhaps, for us heading into the Ipswich game, David Green has agreed with you exactly. He said he fancied us more against Ipswich than the game against Morecambe, especially given the fatigue factor. And I think you mentioned there, we'll have a nice rest. Well, somewhat of a rest now between Morecambe and Ipswich. Ipswich will play on Tuesday against Accrington, which might do us some favours.
Are they away? Where are they?
They're at home, I think.
They're at home.
Ipswich are at home.
I believe so. I'm not certain. But one more game than we'll be playing, that's for certain. Ben has also put another comment on saying it was a game of fine margins. Scholler scored his early chance on another day, and it's a routine win, which is another point. I think it's one of them games that if we grab ourselves an early goal, it's one that we can hold on to, and it's business as usual. But things just didn't quite go our way, and you're going to get games like that.
Ben, can I just stop you very quickly? Off topic slightly, but I just want to pay reference to the fact that we've got a decent little number of people watching this evening. Obviously, I'm keeping an eye on the chat on your behalf, and it's really active, and I think we've got 25 people currently watching. Just a side note to say, obviously, thanks very much, because we had a little chat before the start, and we were a little bit concerned that the numbers weren't going to be as good as previous weeks because of obviously not picking up the best of results. But just a little thank you, and I'm sure Ben and Angel back that up. Just the fact that you're here this evening and having a good interaction with us. It's appreciated.
I will apologise that I cannot see the chat tonight because I've not got my laptop.
It's probably a good thing, Ange, because your eyes are usually up, down, left, right.
I can't see.
No,
yeah, just my thoughts anyway on that. Sorry.
Yeah,
Definitely.
thank you, everyone.
All of you. Yeah, we really do appreciate it. And if Bolton don't, lighten your weekend, then we'll try to. It's the least we could do. But Tobias has put a comment on, and he said that we looked flat and lethargic. We created nothing to get excited about, and he's always trying to be optimistic, and he still is. But the games in hand are slightly concerning. Luckily, the other results went our way, which is a good point. The games in hand, from my point of view, I'd rather have the points on the board. I think Wycombe, even though they have the games in hand, they aren't easy games in hand. And the situation that they're in after just losing Ainsworth and not winning in their last two, which in games on paper that they should be picking up points in, almost goes in our favour.
I think, sorry, Ben. I think what Ange made a good point a couple of minutes ago, actually, when she said about, and it's not something I thought. No, it's not something I actually thought about. We have got a really deep squad, haven't we? And obviously, the longer these next few weeks progress, the players are going to come back from injury, and that's only going to help us. And I don't see, looking at the other squads on paper, whether they're of a similar strength to ours outside, kind of like maybe from 5th down. I don't know.
Portsmouth lost someone on Saturday, didn't they?
Well, they're stuck in mid-table. They're not.
But they're on a good little run, aren't they? I don't know if they can catch us, depending on, obviously it's a results game, isn't it? And as much as all people don't want to rely on other people slipping up, you kind of do. That's what you do in football. You rely on other people not performing like they should. And I absolutely think this next couple of weeks, with some of them catching up with the games in hand, difficult games in hand, like we said, we've got the points on the board. Would you rather be sat with 3 games in hand, but 2 of those are top 5 teams, and that pressure knowing you have to win, or would you rather be sat where we are with the points on the board? It's a 50.
I think if you asked a Wycombe fan there, they'd rather be in our position. I think if you asked a Barnsley fan there, they'd rather be in our position. I think even if you'd ask a Derby fan as well, they'd rather be in our position, because you'd always rather have points on the board, wouldn't you? So that kind of answers your point, really, to be fair.
I mean, unless you're looking at playing relegation fodder that have been, confirmed as going down in your games in hand, then you'd rather have points on the board. But none of the teams,
not the way, because they're playing the games, imminently, aren't they? So
a lot of it, many are playing each other as well. So Tuesday night, I forget now. There's a couple playing each other on Tuesday night.
Come on, Ange.
I know. Sorry.
Come on. I thought you were going to hit us with the fixtures then.
I don't.
People are sat there waiting for your fixture confirmation.
I did look on Saturday because I thought, oh, nice one, that'd be all right Tuesday night. There's a couple that can't. Someone's going to not catch us up. I can't remember who it is.
Tuesday, the 7th of March, the fixtures are as follows. So Derby play Plymouth.
That was one of them.
A big game. Shrewsbury play at Peterborough. So that's 2 teams that, although are below us, I mean, Shrewsbury are on a dangerous-looking run of form, and Peterborough still are within a shout. Wycombe play a struggling Fleetwood, who are going to be looking to capitalise on their all-right run of form. And Barnsley play Portsmouth. So
there you go, see?
There's lots of games there. All of those teams as well that we've mentioned that are in and around us are now heading into that exact same run of games that we had, playing, 4 or 5 in the space of 2 weeks. Yeah. So,
keep the faith, people.
Exactly. Keep the faith. That's the important thing.
Never lose the faith.
Never lose it. Keep showing up and keep getting behind them. That's all we can do.
None of them mourning and groaning and all that crap just because they're not scoring from 40 yards. Although they're making
another team with a really rough run of fixtures coming up as well is Barnsley, which someone else has put a comment on saying that Barnsley's next 5 games are going to be a real test for them. So in their next 5, they play all teams that are in the top 7, I think. So they've got Portsmouth, Plymouth, Wycombe, Sheff Wednesday and Ipswich, which is an absolutely horrendous run of games.
Have they got 4 in hand? Are they the ones with... They've got quite a few in hand, haven't they? Are they 3?
I believe they've got 4 in hand on us, yeah.
So, I mean, they might not win any of those.
No. Well, there's no guarantee. Certainly not. Some draws would be nice, because if Barnsley lose all of them, then it suddenly means that all the teams around us are flying high. So
I'm with Joe Green. Put Joe Green's comment on the screen.
Let's see it.
Which one would that be?
The most recent one. There you go.
AI.
Oh,
I'm with him.
Yeah. Nice.
Or her. Is it Joe? Joe would be with it, and he was a girl, wasn't it? Sorry. I mean, you don't know these days, do you? So God knows. Don't assume.
Careful, Colin.
Oh, yeah, sorry. let's not get political.
No, indeed.
No, I'm with Joe Green anyway, whether you're male, female, or not.
Animal, minimal, vegetable.
Yeah. Anyway,
something that has been flying around on Twitter is the idea that post-January transfer window, Bolton are a weaker side than what we went into it. I'm sure there'll be some fierce opinions on this. If you're in the chat, let us know. Do you think Bolton are now a stronger team coming out of the January window, or a weaker team? Colin, I'm going to give you the floor. What are your thoughts?
Right. What are we in here now? 5th of March.
Indeed.
So we would have made these signings during the course of January. So that started from January the 1st and ended on January the 31st. I think a few of them were made at the end of January as well. So that's therefore given 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a bit week to judge how many players? 5 players?
5.
When you consider 1, 2, Three. Three of them have been injured.
That's the worrying thing for me. It's not that it's not stronger. The squad is stronger, but they're all bloody injured.
Well, they're injured for a reason, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're injured for a reason, and Everett's alluded to that, hasn't he? He's alluded to it already by saying it's the intensity that we play at. It's expectance we've got of our forwards to be on the front foot and press. Injuries are going to happen, especially because some of these lads haven't been playing much as well, and obviously Adebayo, Joaz and stuff. But other than him, they haven't really been playing a great deal of football, so they're going to pick up injuries. But going back to your question about whether we're weaker or stronger, it's absolutely ludicrous to suggest that you can even judge them players on such a short window. Literally been with us 5 weeks. So it's just judge them at the end of the season. Ask that question at the end of the season. Were we stronger from January to May? And if the answer's no, then for the first time in a long time, a recruitment team and Ian Everett have got answers to questions to our answers, have to answer our questions. But in March, ludicrous. Ask Angela.
First name as well. You know he's annoyed when he's
full Sunday title.
Yeah, it does me head in. It does me head in. Like, what do people expect? Like, not only a few weeks ago, people were saying, "Oh, look at Mbete, clean sheet 5-0. Look at clean sheet 5-0. Yada yada yada." Madness. They've been here 5 weeks.
And what do you think?
I'm just gonna back Colin.
Don't back me.
No, I am going to back you because it's right. You can't, like I've just said, the concerning thing for me is that they've come in and they've picked up injuries straight away. So we haven't been able to see the best of them. We don't be able to see any of them in some cases. So, no, how can we possibly judge if it's stronger or weaker? It feels weaker because they're injured and they ain't playing. But I don't think that will be the case at the end of the season.
The reason why people are saying it, and I kind of get it, I can't remember the lad's name. He made some fishing comment earlier on yesterday on Twitter or something. I can't remember the fella's name now. Where is it now? Sorry, this is not helping for people who are watching. I apologise. I've lost it. Reese Scholes, I think his name is on Twitter. He made a comment that I'm sure he was just like either really annoyed or just looking for comments like people. But I understand the comment because what his point he's trying to make is I don't think he's trying to say they've not impacted games very well, have they? And they've not. And that's half the problem in it. You know, we've seen the signings that we've made previously in January. They've come in and they've hit the ground running, aren't they? Pretty sharpish, and they've made impact on the starting 11. And I must admit, I turned around yesterday when Shorty went off and said to my mate, he's struggling to impact games, this lad, isn't he? So they are struggling, but you got to give them time, guys. You know, you got to give them at least longer than 5 weeks to prove the worth. Judge them in May. That rhymes. That's all I'd say. Judge them in May.
That just seems.
In my opinion, I might be wrong. You know, people might have right to expect something straight away within a 4 or 5 week period, but. You know, realistically, I don't think I am wrong with that.
We've got a starting 11 that consists of 4 academy kids. Do you know what I mean? It's like they're in our squad, they're in our team, and they're learning the trade. And they're coming from playing against under 19s, under 18s, under 21s, whatever, where they're getting used to a physical game of football. Like Morecambe away, they'll be bloody battered and bruised. They got kicked up and down the pitch. It's like. Some games are not going to suit them because they're beautiful footballers, and sometimes you just need like a bit of grit in the middle, don't you?
Well, yeah, that's what I said before about MJ and George Johnson. We're missing them two as an option in midfield.
Absolutely. Joe has put a comment on, and he said Dempsey's been here a year. We've only just got to see the best of him in the last couple of months. Let's give the signing some time, which I completely agree with. Unfortunately, for the likes of Unlundalu, Trafford, well, maybe not so much Trafford because he's been here quite a while, but Bradley, maybe Shola as well, they don't really have the luxury of time, especially with Shola coming in January. He's not really got the luxury of having, a year with us like Dempsey's had, but I think you've got to give him time to fit into a new system. I mean, especially with like Unlundalu coming from a Cheltenham side that I don't know if any of you watched the game against Plymouth, but play a very, very different game to what we play. It's a big ask for them to hit the ground running. Some criticism coming in, I think, actually, on Shola. I'd be interested to hear what you both think about that. We've had one saying Shola is struggling because he's being played out of position, and another saying that Shola's had one good game in 10.
That feels
not
harsh.
sure what you both think about that. I think
Has he played 10 games?
not
Feels
sure
like
about,
we played 10 in bloody February.
I don't think he's
it
played 10
might not
games.
actually be far off.
Is it?
I shall have a look for you. He has. He's
Didn't
played
play
10.
Aki because
He
he was
played
cup
10.
10 games already. So slowly racking up his appearances for us. But I think whilst I'm going to reserve judgment, mainly because he is being played out of position, but that I don't think that's a choice Everett wants to make. I think that's a choice Everett's been forced to make because every single one of our strikers, bar Charles, isn't match fit. And so has been pushed into a position that is almost like a square peg in a round hole. Don't quite fit. Again, yeah, like we've seen so many times. But Ange, what do you think with that?
I was convinced. I spoke to Chris before the match on Saturday, and I was convinced he was going to play him in the 10 and put Dan and Dion up front. Convinced, but what do I know? I think it's harsh on the lad, and I think he's been close to it. I think I've given him pop run in the match once, and it was a close run in on another occasion. So I definitely don't think he's only been good 1 in 10. I think he's just like, it's really hard. You can't, when you're playing someone out of position, you're not going to get your best out of them, are you?
Is he out of position though?
Well, I know he said he can play anywhere up top. But
is he out of position, or are we just playing against teams that don't suit his style of football?
Exactly. It's hard. It's physical games. He does really struggle with physical games.
It'd be interesting to see how he performs against Ipswich.
Ipswich at home, I think, will be a different game. We'll see a different surely. Yeah.
I think
it will. It'll be interesting to see. But those games that he's not able to play his game, and those physical games where that don't suit him, unfortunately, we aren't blessed for options.
I think you can see. I think what probably people see as well is you can see the frustration in him that he's doing what he wants to do, and I think sometimes he looks a little bit like he's giving up, and I think that might rub people up the wrong way a little bit. But
he probably needs to look to impact the game off his own bat as well. If things aren't going his way. Obviously he's been asked to play in a position that rightly or wrongly doesn't suit his game, but doesn't stop him from, looking to kind of link play and drop off and, pull out wide or whatever, and just try and create and do something, out of his comfort zone, so to speak. So maybe he could be criticised for that, but it'd be interesting to see against Ipswich if he does play. He probably will play Kieran Lee and him behind
Charlotte, I think play Kieran Lee and him, but
yeah.
Who knows?
It will be an interesting one, that's for certain. I think, when he played against Peterborough, who were much more of a footballing side than perhaps the likes of Morecambe, although that feels harsh to say, because I thought Morecambe actually had some good spells in there, but the less so to speak. We've seen him play, and we've seen what he's capable of, so we'll have to see how that one pans out. But Bolton have played 15 games in the year so far. Of those 15, we have won 10, drawn 2, and lost 3. And 2 of those losses come pretty recently. So, all things considered, it feels like a minor bump in the road that I think we would have all expected at some point. The fixture congestion we've had feels like the perfect time for that bump to come. We've kept 10 clean sheets in those 15 games as well. So
wow, that is what a stat that is.
It's pretty impressive. So when you look at things as a bigger picture, perhaps not ignoring, but considering the last 15 games rather than maybe the last 3 or 4, do you think there's a slight overreaction as to where things are at the minute, Ange?
Always. That's what we do. We always overreact. As a group of supporters, fans. There's always an overreaction, but that's football, isn't it? That's why Maria doing what we do, because it'd be boring if we all thought the same thing, and if there weren't a bit of an overreaction. I mean, I avoided Twitter because this weekend, because you know what, I wasn't in there. My brain is still recovering from my sickness. But yeah, I think some people as well need to put things in drafts before they tweet it. So, like, if you're at work and you're about to send an email, stick it in drafts, come back to it in an hour when you calm down, and then send it.
Just imagine you might get a phone call from HR before you tweet.
Exactly. Imagine you might get a HR phone call. And I think it's just passion, innit? It's passion and it's emotion, it's frustration, and I get it. But I do think that slagging off players and slating Ian, and it's just not, you just make yourself look like a fool, because everyone has a bad game. I love Aaron Morley, I thought he had a terrible game. Not terrible, but for him, not a very good game on Saturday.
His recent high standards, yeah.
Yeah, because he's played so bloody well, but he's a kid. You forget he's still a kid learning his trade.
What I mentioned before about the average age of the team, you know, we're rocking up to places like that and picking up results that we wouldn't have picked up last season. It's a work in progress, isn't it?
Absolutely. So for me, yeah, overreaction central.
Speaking, I think it's overreaction, but it's in the amount, the magnitude of the numbers as well, in it, that doesn't really help, because it's just a sheer volume of people throwing their opinions left, right, and centre, which everybody's entitled to. But sometimes you just got to think of the bigger picture without that reaction. But you're entitled to it, aren't you?
And would there have been such a big reaction if we wouldn't have had 2 5-0 results? Like, is it just set the expectations higher than we had previously? We didn't have that November dip that we had the season before, which is when everyone had the meltdown last season. It's come a bit later, but for me, it's absolutely that congestion of fixtures, and it was going to happen at some point, and I'd rather have it now, and then fingers crossed, y'all have a good kip, and all will be well.
Yeah, I think it's important as well. Like, they've not had time on the grass together, have they? Like Everett said, didn't he, after the game? Like, you know, it isn't park football. This, you can't just like rock up after a few Stellas and just play football and just, you know, hope you win. You know,
put a shout out on Twitter for a goalkeeper.
Exactly. There's the tactics and there's the analytics and there's the, you know, the routines that you practice in conjunction with the opposition, and there's all sorts of stuff that you got to think of, that when they're travelling on a Tuesday night, and I know they flew down and all that crap, but you know, it's still not time on the grass, is it? So that's why this week's so critical to them.
It's the day of the match, the day after the match. They lose in 2 days of training when you've got a weekday match.
Yeah, exactly that. Let's just hope that, I think the weather's not supposed to be great this week, but let's just hope that Lostock is in good shape.
Bloody hell and all.
Just in good shape, so we can get that down to the back to basics a bit.
They didn't get that bloody dome back up. What's happening with that?
Speaking of overreactions, Chris has put a comment on, and he said there was an overreaction from Ange when he rang her last week. It sounded like Darth Vader and insisted she was on the way out.
I told you she sounded like she was going to die. I said this.
Which, honestly, it was bad times. It was proper bad.
I'm going to find the voice note and listen to it. Yeah. we're not just here for football. We're here for comedy value as well. Let me try and find this.
Absolutely, entertainment purposes.
Yeah, give me a minute.
If Bolton can't brighten up your week, we sure will.
We'll try.
Yeah, we'll try. And this voice note from Anne should do exactly that. But yeah, it's a good point. You know, the overreaction does seem to be apparent, and perhaps, like you said, Ange, that expectation has been raised from 2 5-0 wins and a game where there's booked us a trip to Wembley. Everyone, rightly so, is pretty giddy at the minute. So perhaps that may well have.
It's like a slap round the chops, isn't it? Coming back down to earth when you're on the back of those 2 5-0 wins and that Aki result. It's literally like a slap round the chops, and I think it does hit you harder when you've been performing so well.
It does indeed. Colin, have you found the
No,
trusty
Karen's
voice note?
You
I
I
can't.
swear on it. I can't remember if I swear
No,
on it.
I
You
can't.
can't tell what you're saying, I'll be honest.
Yeah, it don't matter. I can't find it.
After the podcast, we'll go and find it. We'll dig it out of the archives and we might tweet it for you all. to have a look.
We will definitely tweet it because it's definitely worth a tweet.
So on that note, if you aren't following us on Twitter and you want to see some, top tier content, then head over to @thefanzone_pod. Straight after this, you'll be able to find us at the Fanzone Pod. Give us a follow, and you'll get to hear Angie's Darth Vader impression.
It's more like Gollum.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mixture of all sorts.
Gollum, yeah. I genuinely thought you were going to die. I expected us to be going to Horwich Parish Church, laying a
St Mary's, thank you.
St Mary's, sorry.
So, the last sort of point I wanted to touch on before we wrap things up is if we got 5 wins from our last 10 games of the season, Wycombe would have to get 9 in 13 to overtake us. And the person that sent me that said we are in the playoffs and will be at the end of the season. Everyone needs to relax. And it's quite, it's a good point. 5 from 10 is much more reasonable than 9 from 13 from a team that have just lost their manager of, 13 years.
And he's lost his first 2 games as well.
He has.
More confident.
I think that's more down to the state of QPR's squad
QPR's
than anything else. It's in a bit of a bad way. But, 5 in 10 for us, 9 in 13 for Wycombe. That's what we're looking at. And funny enough, as I was reading through this, and as we were on the podcast tonight, I've been mentioning a tweet from a Wycombe fan who said, "You lads won't have to worry about us. We are nowhere near it."
Oh.
So, all may be well on that front. But what do you two think? I mean, from my point of view, for us to win 5 in 10 seems more than reasonable. When you look at the fixtures that we've got. Colin, what do you think?
Well, let's go back to what you said 5 minutes ago about how many games we've won in the last 10. Did you make that?
13. Was it 13?
Last 15 we've won.
Last 15. There we go. So there's your answer there. That is why it's, pretty much touch wood, and that's actually made a wood as well. That's why it's pretty much, guaranteed that we're going to get in them playoff spots. As I said before, for me, it's about making sure when we do get in them, if it is in fact where we finish, we're not excluding the top 2, that we're on a run when we go into it. We need to be in good form when we go into the playoffs. I'm not bothered where we finish, although I really can't be asked with another Ipswich playoff shenanigans. Those of us that are old enough to remember them. Not so much you, Ben. But yeah, they're not very enjoyable against the Tractor Boys, and I'm sure they'll probably say the same thing about us, even though they got one over on us a couple of times. But it doesn't. I have no concern about the playoffs. For me, it's about making sure that we beat Ipswich on Saturday, and then going into that Sheffield Wednesday game with our tails between our legs and trying to get something from Hillsborough. Because if we don't beat Ipswich, we fail to get anything against Sheffield Wednesday, and then we can all kiss goodbye to the top 2. But the playoffs, I'm not really too concerned. Chris has made a good point as well. Wycombe need to also address a 9-goal swing. So yeah, that's a point effectively in it, really. And we're just talking about the 6th spot there, aren't we? Barnsley might go on a bit of a bad run. They might drop out. You just don't know, do you? But no concerns for me as far as the playoffs are concerned.
Ange, what do you think?
I've forgotten the question, Ben. What did you ask?
I'll be completely honest with you. I forgot the question that I asked.
What was it?
Come on, this is not professional list, guys.
It's not at all. I just sort of asked it and passed it on to Colin, and whilst he was
speaking,
then
Colin's lost me because your answer was long, so now I've forgotten what the question was.
I've been reading through the comments.
You were saying, is it achievable to win 5 games?
Would you rather be 5 in 10 or 9 in 13? Was that it?
Basically.
No, you made that up, but yeah.
I'd rather be us than Wycombe. Is that enough? Is that the question? I'm not even drinking. What's going on?
She's still ill, guys. That's what it is. She's.
I'm going to mute myself before someone says something I regret.
Colin, what question did you answer?
Basically,
go on.
Wickham have now got a win 9 in 13, and we've got a win 5 in 10. And is it unreasonable to expect us to win 5 in 10?
No, is it? We'll do it. Be fine. Be right.
Be right. We'll take that. Quote of the day from Ange. Be right.
5 in 10. Be right. We're on it. We've got it.
If you take nothing else from today's episode, just take be right.
That's my answer to everything. Be right.
Indeed, absolutely, and I think that just about closes off today's.
Sorry, Ben. Sorry. So I saw a post before and I thought it was really nice. I don't know who it was. I think it might have been Brandon Simpson, possibly. He called our podcast the best Bolton Wanderers podcast. There's every chance that Brandon's probably now, retracting that comment as we speak, because that last couple of minutes was awful. So I apologise.
At least we're not dull.
Well,
if nothing else, I guess. Brandon, if it was you that said that, man, make sure you don't delete that comment because it was really nice.
I'm sorry.
Well, we'll stick that in the imaginary trophy cabinet.
Yes,
we've got the best podcast and the not dull podcast. And I think that just about rounds off today's episode. I think before we go any further, before anyone else forgets any more questions, probably best to call it a night, folks. What do you think?
Just rest up, guys, and rock up at the Reebok Uniball tough shit stadium, whatever you want to call it, on Saturday in fine voice, get behind them and beat Ipswich.
Absolutely.
Nice
and we'll end on a lovely comment from Chris, who said, "It's an excellent show, this. From the graphics, questions concerning the topic of the week, it's extremely well put together and it soothes the away day hangovers." That will be our new motto. If you've got an away day hangover, come and have a listen. But thank you all very much for watching. And remember, go and follow us on socials. Twitter, @thefanzonepod. Instagram, @thefanzone podcast. If you watch on YouTube, subscribe to the channel and press the little bell. You'll be notified every time we go live.
And also, if you go into the supermarket, if you go into Tesco, Aldi, Morrison's, Lidl, Sainsbury's, wherever you're going and you're going to buy some gin, just have a minute and think, you know what, I can get some gin from somewhere else.
That way. Bolton Gin Company.
Just there. Because they give you some discount. And it's going to a local business.
It's good gin as well, folks. It is good gin.
We've got Mother's Day coming up soon as well, haven't we? So you can always treat your mum, or, you could buy some, if you've got a kid. Oh, don't get me going with this, but if you've got a kid who is under the age of being able to buy Mother's Day gifts, you have to buy gifts for your kid, for your mum. Yeah. So it comes out of my pocket. So I'm basically buying Mother's Day for my mum and Mother's Day for my missus via my kid. Anyway, if you've got that scenario going on, that's another good gin opportunity.
Or you can just send it to me.
No, because she can't even remember questions. So
if you do want to get yourself some Bolton gin, then if you use the code FANZONE10 at checkout, you'll even get yourself 10% off. If Colin hadn't already sold it to you, then that should do. But that rounds off episode 23. Thank you all for joining us. We really do appreciate it. Really lively chat tonight. Good number of viewers in as well. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And as always, thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.
Cheers, guys. Come on, you way.